When most people think of the pyramids, they imagine colossal triangles standing stoically at the edge of a desert, seemingly defying the passage of time. What most people don't know is that not only are there hundreds of pyramids scattered throughout the world, but some new discoveries suggest that the largest and oldest of these ancient structures weren't just tombs for dead kings, but rather elaborately designed complexes complete with sprawling gardens, artificial lakes, and even a river running through them. Today, we're going to be looking at some of the pyramids that exist today, and discussing how scientists recently uncovered what they believe to be the truth about how the Great Pyramid of Giza was actually constructed. The Great Pyramids of Giza are undoubtedly the most famous of the roughly 100 or so pyramids that exist in Egypt today. These pyramids, which include the famed Great Pyramid of Khufu, were built as elaborate tombs for Egyptian royalty during the 4th dynasty, around 2600 BCE. Now, while most Egyptologists agree that the pyramids served as burial chambers for the pharaohs, it is still unclear whether they actually contained mummies inside, or if the mummified bodies of the elite rulers were placed in underground shrines instead. This is because no actual mummies have ever been found inside any of the 3 pyramids at Giza. However, considering that building such massive structures would have taken an enormous amount of manpower and resources, it seems unlikely that the Egyptians would have gone through all that work just to leave their king's remains out in the open. In fact, excavations have revealed that the internal chambers of the pyramids were filled with treasures like chariots, gold goblets, furniture, ivory boxes, and over 2,000 pieces of art depicting scenes from the afterlife. The sheer volume of these riches would suggest that the rooms were intended for the pharaohs to enjoy in the afterlife. As such, it seems more probable that the remains of Egypt's greatest rulers were indeed entombed within their namesake pyramids. Now, when it comes to the pyramids themselves, the exact methods of construction have been hotly debated by Egyptologists since the 19th century. Some have argued that the Egyptians hauled the massive stone blocks up the structure using brute force alone, while others contend that ramps were used to move the stones into place. And others have theorized that the stones were floated into position using a system of canals and waterways. Unfortunately, evidence for any of these theories has been hard to come by, since the vast majority of the pyramids were constructed around 4,500 years ago, long before writing or record-keeping of any kind was invented in Egypt. Nonetheless, archaeologists may have finally gotten their answer thanks to a series of newly discovered canals. In July of 2023, a team of researchers announced that they had identified a network of canals and causeways that led directly to the base of the Great Pyramid of Khufu. According to the team, these waterways were likely used to transport limestone blocks from Tura to the construction site. Tura, an ancient city located across the Nile from Memphis, was one of several centers where limestone was quarried and shaped for use in the construction of the Giza pyramids. Given that the entire complex was built from limestone, it's easy to see why this material was brought in from outside of the immediate area. But exactly how the Egyptians transported these heavy blocks without modern tools or technology has always been something of a mystery. The discovery of the canal system suggests that the ancient Egyptians used boats to float the limestone down from Thera, and then used a system of levers and ramps to drag the stones out of the water and onto land. From there, they could have used rollers, sledges, and manpower to move the stones to the pyramid site and hoist them into place. According to the lead researcher, the waterways likely consisted of a series of canals connected by causeways that allowed workers to move between them on foot. The canals were probably dug using tools like picks and shovels, then lined with bricks to keep them from collapsing. But There is one major problem with this theory. The team believes that the waterways were used during the construction of the Great Pyramid around 2600 BC, but a study conducted in 2021 found that the oldest waterway dates back to around 2400 BC, meaning that the canals couldn't have played a role in the construction of the nearby pyramids at Bent Khefu and Menkaure, which experts believe took place sometime between 2580 and 2560 BC. But the researchers contend that the canal system was expanded after its initial construction to serve the needs of the later pyramids. Regardless, it appears that the ancient Egyptians did not rely solely on brute strength to construct the pyramids. Instead, they incorporated natural elements like the Nile River into their engineering projects. By utilizing the waterways, the Egyptians were able to take advantage of buoyancy to reduce the amount of manpower required to move the massive stones. This, in turn, reduced the amount of time and resources needed to complete the project. Interestingly enough, this isn't the first time researchers have proposed that the Egyptians used floating systems to build the pyramids. More than 100 years ago, a French engineer named Émile Baradel suggested that the Egyptians used a fleet of boats to move the stones from the quarries to the construction site. However, his theory was never taken seriously because no physical evidence could be found to support it. According to the researchers, they knew about Baradel's theory and wanted to conduct new research to see if there was any validity to it. After reviewing aerial photographs, they noticed subtle lines extending from Tura to the base of the pyramids. Upon further investigation, they realized that the lines were actually canals. Using ground-penetrating radar, the researchers then identified a number of other waterways that crisscrossed the Giza Plateau. These waterways appear to have been used for transporting large blocks of limestone from the nearby town of Latamka to the base of the Sphinx and the pyramids of Amenhotep, Kaffa, and Menkaure. The team also conducted test digs at two sites along the route. One of the sites contained pottery shards dating back to the 4th dynasty, while the other contained animal bones that had been butchered and discarded, suggesting that both locations had been occupied by human beings at the time the canals were built. Taken together, this evidence suggests that the Egyptians used a sophisticated system of waterways to transport the massive blocks of stone that make up the pyramids. As impressive as the logistics of this feat are, there's another surprising aspect to consider. You see, one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the pyramids is the lack of saws or chisels found at the construction site. This is strange because the precision with which many of the blocks fit together suggests that they were cut with great care. Researchers have long wondered how the ancient Egyptians achieved such accuracy without using metal cutting tools. One theory is that the Egyptians used wooden tools to shape the limestone. However, wood is not particularly effective at cutting stone. Another possibility is that the Egyptians used copper tools. Copper is relatively soft, yet harder than stone, making it ideal for cutting hard materials. Moreover, copper tools were widely used in Egypt during the Old Kingdom, the period of time when the pyramids were built. Indeed, traces of copper have been found on some of the limestone blocks at Giza. However, there's no evidence that copper was used for cutting, leading many Egyptologists to dismiss it as a viable theory. Nonetheless, the discovery of the canal system suggests that the Egyptians may have used a combination of ramps, levers, and the Nile River to transport and position the massive stone blocks. The use of waterways would have allowed the Egyptians to move much larger blocks than they could have otherwise, given that the average weight of the limestone blocks used in the construction of the Great Pyramid is around 2.5 tons. This finding has led some experts to reconsider the role of copper tools in pyramid construction. If the ancient Egyptians were willing to invest the time and resources necessary to develop such a sophisticated system of waterways. It's entirely possible that they would have done the same for their copper-based tools. By using both waterways and copper tools, the Egyptians could have easily achieved the level of precision seen in the finished product. In fact, some researchers argue that the waterways themselves are evidence of copper tool use, given that digging canals through solid rock would have been extremely difficult without the proper tools. Though there's currently no physical evidence of copper tools at the Giza site. The discovery of the waterways has led some Egyptologists to reevaluate previous findings and reconsider the role that copper may have played in pyramid construction. While there are dozens of pyramids still standing today, each is unique in its design and construction. For example, the Great Pyramid of Khufu is the oldest and largest of the three main pyramids at Giza, standing 147 meters tall and covering 53 acres at its base. It's estimated 2 million limestone blocks weigh a staggering 6 million tons. Meanwhile, the nearby Bent Pyramid is the tallest of the Egyptian pyramids, standing at 154 meters high. Despite its impressive height, the Bent Pyramid is the least well-known of the Giza pyramids due to its remote location and the fact that it was never completed. Then there's the Black Pyramid, also known as the Unfinished Pyramid, which is notable for its steep incline and dark limestone. Of the hundreds of pyramids built in Egypt over the course of several thousand years, each is a testament to the ingenuity and engineering skill of the ancient Egyptians. Though many remain shrouded in mystery, one thing is certain: these ancient structures will continue to fascinate and inspire awe for generations to come. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.